to this special episode of Decoding Gender Insights from Thought Leaders. Population First is observing the 16 days of activism against gender based violence, a global campaign from November 25th to December 10th, with a 16-part podcast series that delves into the intersection of gender and critical social issues. Since inception in 2005, Population First has focused on challenging the gender attitudes that devalue girls and women, fuel discrimination, and perpetuate gender-based violence, the central theme of today's episode. With 1 in 3 Indian women and girls affected by gender-based violence, the urgency of addressing this issue cannot be overstated. In this episode, we are joined by two distinguished experts, Samira Khan, a Mumbai-based independent journalist, columnist, researcher, author and Ladli Media awardee. And with her is Dr. Vibhuti Patel, a renowned academic, writer, political activist and one of India's foremost authorities on gender. Dr. Patel is also a valued member of Population First's Board of Trustees. Now, over to our experts.
The question of gender-based violence has come to center stage mainly because of the collective endeavor and the collective wisdom of the women's movement, which started in a post-emergency period. It was for the first time in those 18 months of emergency, 5,000 women activists who were involved in the students' movement, peasant movement, Adivasi movement, Dalit movement, anti-dowry movement, which was there in certain parts of India. Even the sexist portrayal of women in media, that was also an issue, which was in a pre-emergency period. Newly formed women's organization had taken up, and the experience of state machinery and the coercive forces which brutalized women and used act of sexual violence as a weapon to demoralize the movement that made these women who were politically very active to take up women's question. They said, okay, when the repression takes place, everybody suffers, but when it comes to women, this account is settled on women's body mainly to demoralize. And after that, we saw that in a post-emergency period also, so many cases of whether it was Rami Sabi case in Hyderabad or mass rape during Namantar, the renaming of Marathwada University that happened. We had done Padyatra of 48 villages in Marathwada, Nandad, Parpani, Aurangabad. That was the time nobody even accepted that such thing happened. In fact, nobody was ready to even publish the report. That particular section they did not want to particular, where we talked about the sexual violence. So this is a very important concern. Only thing that over the 40 years, what we have seen that we had to earlier fight even to get issue recognized as a social problem, and police would not write FIR, would not be ready to write FIR, or the community would boycott her. Victim blaming, ideology of victim blaming was used by the near and dear ones and family members and community. That woman, the survivor of rape or sexual violence, had no other way of getting solace. And it is in that context that the women's movement, especially after the Mathura judgment by Justice Chandrachud on Mathura rape case, that nationwide anti-rape movement came into existence, and Bombay had taken a lead, Forum Against Rape had taken a lead, and the encircling of Parliament by Women's Chain, I think that was a very, very globally acknowledged spectacle. And after that, what we see is that institutionalization of this issue has happened because of whatever legal reforms we asked for over 30 years. Like first time I remember meeting members of along with the other fellow feminists, to meeting members of Law Commission. And when we talked about increasing sexual violence, because by then, even the cases of Maya Tyagi rape case, where the police officers had instigated constables to rape her, And we were told that our priorities are wrong. We should be working with women to become Sitas and Savitris so that no evil person can cast his eye. And that was the time Mr. Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana was going on. They said, you must popularize this serial. Ask women to sit in front of this and evolve a character. Says that was the level of members of apex body which are making laws for our country, and
Correct.
realize that it is only the street fighting which is going to take us ahead, and that's why we had this women's chain around the parliament, and individually parliamentarians sympathetic to, especially Madam Margaret Alva, and there were quite a few men also who were ready to listen to us. The two central demands: amendment in the rape law, which were very antiquated, focusing only on penile penetration, and the other one was the Mathura Kunyaido, the whole casteist, very very upper caste way of dismissing the agony of teenage tribal girl by calling her that she was a loose character, and tribal girls are in any way very much sexualized at a very young age. This kind of humbug arguments were being used, and women's movement fought against it.
So you're right. I mean, there has been this is the big shift. I think I'm so glad you brought in at the forefront women's movement, which is really pushed again every time it has been thrown back on the issue of gender-based violence, as of course other issues regarding women. Because otherwise it's always been, as you said, good girls are fine. There's Sitas and Savitri, but this happens to bad girls. Violence happens to them. So and in fact, we're still battling that in 2021.
Yeah.
Not that we're not. That image of a certain kind of woman who wears certain kind of clothes or is out at a certain time or doing certain kind of activity, these women are prone to it. And then they do have no answers for the other violence, which affects the Sitas or Savitris or whatever. You're wearing a sari or your 4-month-old girl getting assaulted. How does that happen? They have no answers for that. But the fact to acknowledge that violence against women is all pervasive, it is in public, but it's also in private. And I think now the real battle is also talking domestic violence and dowry violence. Dowry violence, the 70s was a big issue. It looks like, when you ask students to look at newspaper and you ask them, do you think dowry violence takes place? They say, no, we don't read about it. And this is very interesting. The media doesn't report it or doesn't report it enough. It doesn't happen. But actually, dowry violence, according to the National Crime Records Bureau list every year after year, is still very big. And domestic violence.
Even the states which did not have it now, Kerala, it has become a very major, highly educated women, and they become they are murdered, no?
Yeah.
Greed of dowry.
Exactly. So that to bring back certain issues to a very forefront in the 70s, 80s are now like off the this thing. In the statistics they are there, but it's interesting how in media reporting is not even led by the numbers. They want to look at some numbers, they will look at. If they don't want to look at it, they don't look at. Okay. So to bring the domestic violence forefront, like the whole fight for women's groups for get marital rape acknowledged, which has been a fight struggle which is still going on. But to say this is not about good or bad women. It's not, don't individualize the violence. It's not about this woman was tougher versus this woman was weaker. It's a more institutional, it's not a private problem. It's a systemic, violence is systemic in a patriarchal society. It's a way to teach women certain lessons. And in war, but in everyday life in the home, outside the home, in special occasions, when there's riots, when there's war, women's bodies, these wars are all fought on women's bodies. So,
and now the attacks on young girls are increasing because with the awareness, at least colleges, you have women development cell, or the people are talking about date rape, and they know. So at least grown-up women, they are relatively more cautious. They are not. So what happened in France, we saw that lady who was raped by more than 70 men because she trusted that man. No, but now there is a skepticism among women, and they also realize that grown-up women, that you have to be in a group. There is strength in number. So now the targets are basically young girls and boys, no? And about that, we have not prepared them. In the school, nobody talks about child sexual abuse, they talk about, but the varied forms of violence, and especially information technology aided stalking and blackmail, and it has a permanency, no? It is not just one act of violence. When you make a videography of that whole episode, it remains, that scar is, and also the damage is also permanent, no? Because it can be any time, any day, anybody can watch it, the way it happened in case of France, no? So that is this thing. Another very important thing, because of the global feminist solidarity and transnational feminist solidarity, now there is an acceptance that even at the time of war and conflict, rape becomes a weapon. Earlier, it was not there. Even 15 years back, I remember 2005 when we approached Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all those they would not accept. For them, war means only prisoners' rights and territorial this thing damage to the property and all. But none of them had accepted sexual violence as an issue. But what now we see is that anytime there is an internal domestic conflict or the territorial conflict, this becomes a weapon. So that acknowledgement is there, but only thing, the empathy and the way the justice system is still not geared to or empathetic to this kind of tragedy.
Correct. Yeah. So this challenge remains. So one is that I think that, in India, you look at the law, for example, with regard to sexual assault has moved a lot, especially since 2012, when the Justice Verma Committee, after all petitions by women's groups who were already working on this, and suddenly got impetus after that case. And this law, as you said, the rape law, the whole definition of rape, which is something women's groups have been fighting for so long. Finally, that definition changed. So while we're not in a perfect law, they've added in, stalking, they've added in acid throwing, all those other areas have come in. And it is definitely stronger in terms of faster march for justice. But still you find it's unequally applied. So if you're an urban woman, you're middle class, your chance of getting some kind of justice may be faster. If getting justice and getting it faster. Then compared to if you're rural, tribal, a woman living in the slums, there's still a very good definition of who gets more better chance of justice and who doesn't.
So I think power. So now we need to bring into focus powers. It's a power rape, no? Most of the cases, the large majority of cases are a power rapes, where the unequal power relation because of the economic distress or because the way traffickers use it, or during the pandemic, the number of distress calls made on Childline, more than 175,000 children called, and out of which 25,000 were adolescent girls. So it was because of the forced marriage or for their sale, or traffickers, this thing.
Or that homes were unsafe places. I mean, that's the whole thing. You think now the girls are home for 1 year, so they're going to be safe. There's going to be violence. But the number of calls, as what the UN calls a shadow pandemic, domestic violence is huge amounts. And not in the home, just only the home you were married into, but also in your home with your brothers, fathers, all kinds of. It's quite shocking to see it up from this.
Another issue which I would like to bring to focus is about the World Bank saying that sexual harassment at workplace is the most devastating occupational hazard of the 21st century. There too, we see that it is women who are becoming more confident. They are not they are demanding equal space, equal right, and equal opportunity and equal rewards for the work that they do. So the rebuttal for that is also sexual harassment at workplace. No, so earlier, like I would know that where I worked in the university, women would join as a most junior clerk and retire as a junior. No more. Women know that I'm qualified and I'm asking for promotion. So if women demand their rights and promotion, then the rebuttal is that man would gang up and see her as a threat that she may surpass her, and use the weapon of sexual harassment at workplace. So that is microaggression and sexual harassment at workplace. These are the major complaints of the people in the human resource department of corporate world. So as women are gaining more confidence, as women are entering different sectors of the economy and they are not only just a teacher and secretaries, or they are everywhere. So there also.
And then the price they pay for speaking up. If you look at the Kerala thing, the film industry, what the women in the Kerala film industry with the women in media collective, women in cinema collective, and the battle they fought, now being recognized by the Hema Committee report. But look at the price they paid all these years, and they continue to pay, for that, for speaking up, not getting roles, not getting a chance. So many of them have to give up their dream in order to speak up for this.
So but they also say that they would prefer only 14, 15 or 16-year-old girl because she is innocent, she has grown up in a sheltered family, and she would be trusting. But if you are 20, she said by the time she was the person who founded it, she said by the time she was 20, she had become useless for Kerala film industry. So catch them young, that is this thing.
Even the faces reports, so much material available now, talking about so many people talking, not just one woman, so many women together, still denial across this thing. I think today there's been a judgment from the Supreme Court of the bail for one of the men. There's been appeal.
The
So
main thing is that why should women dream? Why should women aspire? Why don't they
exactly,
accept the assigned roles they have?
yeah,
No, that's
yeah,
the generally even
correct,
people in power, whether they are IS office administrators or police or in judiciary or your highly educated relatives, all of them they say no that she
yeah,
deserved it. Why did she want to
yeah.
become the? Who asked her to enter, become engineer? Who asked her
And
to?
then when it happened, she had to keep quiet. Then
Yeah,
that is the rule of the game. If you
yeah.
enter that, bahar jaogi to ye hoga, wahan jaogi to you work in this kind of professions. It will happen if you accept it as part. And then, I mean, and the only way women have understood is to build solidarity with each other and
Yeah.
stick together.
And
But
even
still,
mother-daughter solidarity. In a Shakti
yeah,
Milk case, the mother
yes,
stood like a solid
correct,
rock with the daughter.
yes, yeah,
The blame should be on the accused, those who
yeah,
have behaved so
correct,
nastily with my daughter, not my daughter. And she said she
yeah,
would stand by her. She was
correct.
really good. And same with Jyoti Singh's mother also.
Hmm,
And yeah, even in Kolkata, the doctor, the
hmm,
parents are so
yeah,
proud of her.
correct, correct.
So that is
Yeah,
these are the new trends which are emerging. That
hmm,
you get people who are supporting you, not
hmm,
only in the women's movement, but even around you. This thing.
yeah. And so it seems like that the young people definitely do not want to, uh, hide this and want to talk about it, and they want to confront it and push it. But it seems like what we really need to work with is the larger institutions. They seem very stodgy and stuck in the real past and not understanding, this that these issues. So why are you discussing sexual issues? Why are you discussing something which is so intimate in public? So even you see the way judgments are even framed. While the law is getting more and more progressive, some of the people implementing it, whether it's at the police station level or in courts, they don't seem to, they're uncomfortable. It's literally like they want it out of their court as fast as possible.
No, and
So
they
they're
say that how
uncomfortable.
can you, like women from decent family and highly educated, how
Yeah,
can you talk about these issues?
talk about these
Imagine
issues.
the effort that we
Yeah,
have to have
effort.
with the Bombay Municipal Corporation to get a module on safe touch, unsafe touch introduced. They
Correct.
would say that if we do something, children will lose innocence. I said, but
Yeah,
such rampant sexual
yeah,
harassment at workplaces is happening. We are
yeah,
community-based organizations, and the workers
yeah,
are reporting why children don't want to go to school, not because they want to play, but it is because of the kind of atmosphere, the toxic atmosphere which is there in the school. But still, the commissioner would say that your priorities are wrong. If you do talk such thing, children will lose innocence. Children have already lost
yeah,
innocence with
yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of
It's like it's the original sin. So don't talk about the
yeah.
original sin. That's
Yeah, and the
let's talk
buses,
about.
all these young girls, no, when they see
Yeah,
a passenger sitting next to her, masturbating and removing zipper and all those things, they're so
yeah.
rampant. But
It's very
these
random.
people, the officers and all,
Yeah,
they just don't accept, no, that such things happen.
yeah,
Yeah, unless it happens in their own family,
yeah.
so then they become
So this
sympathetic.
conversation has been widened, and of course, I mean, I really focus a lot on media training on how to report this, and I find the media also. I mean, why it's really improved in many ways and very
Yeah.
keen to report. It becomes also important that what they pick up certain cases, right, and they push certain and stories, certain not, and the most graphic, the most violent. It's like it has to be violence of that nature and that graphic and that
No, and glamorous. Like I
and
know journalists
what
telling
kind
me,
of yeah,
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 when I introduced, they wanted to do an in-depth case study on women survivors of violence, and I introduced them. They said, "Oh, but she's not glamorous. We wanted someone like Rinki Bhattacharya or this thing." No, so that also the stereotypes
yeah,
sip in. No, that even
correct,
among the survivors, who would they select and who
yeah,
they ignored? No,
yeah.
yeah,
And are you a survivor if you don't cry enough or you don't show
yeah.
enough injury or whatever? I
That
know.
even at police station, that
Yeah,
even at police, because I
yeah,
remember accompanying Rinki to Bandra West police station, they all were
mm,
laughing at me. They said, "Ma'am, kya time pass karte ho? You are just,
yeah,
is she crying? Do you think,
mm.
do you see any this thing? She's so confident, she's so articulate. Do you think that she's a survivor of violence?" So they have certain stereotypical image of
Of
that
what a victim looks like and what is
victim looks. Yeah, correct.
correct. Yeah. So what do you find? I mean, one of the things I have a problem with the media is how they select the cases they choose to report on or push. One is based upon the graphic kind of violence, but also the caste composition of both
Intersectionality.
the
Correct.
perpetrator and the survivor. They will look at that and say, okay, this person from a glamorous part of society, this is a celebrity, or this is middle class woman, this is a working class man. Then we are sort of interested in those stories, but they
But
literally
that
have
is
a sort
true
of,
even in the ICC, no,
yeah,
Internet Complaints Committee.
correct,
Even in
yeah,
that bears a major weight with the members there, no. That if
hmm,
there is a person who is at lower rung of hierarchy and accused of harassment, then the woman will get justice. But when it is the
hmm,
higher authorities and all,
correct,
everything would be
yeah,
all the efforts will be made to subvert it. And finally, you have
hmm,
to tell the survivor that better you go to women's group and do something in public or file a criminal case, because this
hmm,
internal complaints committee is not going to give you any justice there.
hmm. And of course, I mean, the other thing the reporting is, then immediately it's not just straight reporting. It is a lot of adjectives used, a lot of moralizing. Privacy is invaded in all kinds of ways. Not just so many of them are very careful about not naming the person, give you a fake name or whatever. But that's the only change they make. They don't change identity fully, and they
And
expose
now the
quite.
new or very
Yeah,
important factor is that women in the religious groups, no, they are coming out about the
correct.
extremely horrible experiences they have had. And even
Yeah,
in that, they would say that, oh, but she was a mother superior. How could she be raped for 13?
yes,
My own research
yeah,
scholar would talk
yeah,
like that. I said, but you don't understand that, man. Her the livelihood of all the institutions for which she is responsible, orphanages and hospitals and
correct.
shelter homes and all, the right to sign the bills is with that man. No,
Hmm.
they don't even
No,
realize
so
what he's
it makes
saying.
you think that people, whether it's a media or whether society, when you're looking at violence against women, you're looking at these still not drawing the dots. You're still looking at these individual incidences.
Correct.
You're looking at something the victim may have done, survivor may have done by their behavior, their clothes, the timing, and it is sad. It is very sad. It shouldn't have happened, but they are to blame. And then the individual cases. You don't join the dots and say if this happens in a woman's body day in day out and historically has happened across the world in war situations, in peace situations, whatever. There's something larger, the larger framework for understanding how you control women, how you
Correct.
control how one group, one gender controls another gender.
Yeah.
So that understanding is not there. So it's like we don't have the patriarchal understanding, and that's why it's really shocking that we had a sitting cabinet minister recently saying that patriarchy is just an excuse for inefficiency. Why are women talking about patriarchy? There's no patriarchy. You want to go ahead, you can go ahead. There's no structure, there's no framework. But if you don't look at it through that framework, you think these are isolated incidents. It happened to that woman, it happened to that woman, that girl, and so even as more
And
and
the
more voices
material
are
reality, no, material reality, when 94% women are
correct,
in female sector, there is a law of jungle.
exactly, yeah,
Even if you say go by the UN statistics, the women control only 1% of world's wealth, and they
correct,
have only 1/10 of world's wages. That
yeah,
itself shows where they are in the
yeah.
hierarchy pyramid. And this
Hmm.
powerlessness
Hmm.
of day-to-day existential reality, that is the one which
Yeah. So if you don't realize which gender has power,
fluctuates.
which doesn't, how they exhibit that power in so many ways, withholdings of that, and also by using violence. So you don't understand. So you don't understand structure of a religious organization, for example, or a social organization, or an office network. They organize around certain lines. One is that there are more men everywhere, and they are always in positions of power, and they have power over all other, most of the women there. So people just don't sort of, if you don't understand, once you understand that reality, you see it very differently, the violence. You
Correct. And
see
you
it
also
very
come up with the solution which are
exactly
very which are empowering and which
powering.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
example, cluster approach, like we
Yeah.
always say that
Yeah.
not one or two women, we should be
Yeah.
in cluster.
And
Whether
you don't look at violence or sexual violence against women is the worst thing happening to them. Because some of the trope is the worst thing which can happen to you is not death or murder. The worst thing is sexual assault. That is the
right.
worst thing to happen to you.
Yeah.
So but once you look at violence that way, rather than saying that we all have experienced it in certain forms, and we all choose to rise and fight it using the law or whatever. It's that. I just find like sometimes you're banging your head against the same issue, but you're stuck doing that. Uh, the other thing with the media reporting, something which has been always troubling me, is what they call false reports. Okay, so particularly with regard to 498A and domestic violence, you particularly look. What the media has done is, if someone hammers along for many years by telling you the story that this act which denies men and their families bail, if a woman says that I'm being harassed for dowry under 498A, is the worst thing, and we know, and women are crying wolf. So you keep saying woman A, woman B, woman C, everybody's crying wolf. And that's why it's a terrible act. It goes against innocent men. So, and the media keeps reporting. So, one is it happening, but the other thing, the media reporter will only focus on what they consider the false cases.
No, but then you have to go through the data also. How many of them are
No,
convicted?
so
Only
exactly. No, but if you say
2%.
reportage, when I've been looking
Under
at reportage for
498,
years,
convictions have been 2%.
correct, exactly. I agree with you. So, the 498A or sexual assault or something in an office, someone claiming a POXO, they say false case, false case, false case. And the reporting
No,
will
but
be only
false
done
case.
of that. So, of 100 cases, I mean, all laws are abused. If 2% is abused, you are only focusing on those 2 cases.
Yeah, but
You're not telling
abuse
me
of
about the
all
90
other laws also, like people are abusing traffic law, no? By
traffic law, real estate
do we
law,
ask no,
everything.
do
Yeah,
we
every
ask
law
them
is being
to
used.
repeal that? No, we
Exactly.
don't know.
No,
There
no,
will
we
be
don't know.
some who would be
Yeah,
doing that, but that
yeah.
doesn't mean that you should repeal such progressive laws, no?
So in this false reportage, you see a certain kind of reporting. As you keep telling me year after year one story, I started believing that that is the story. No, I'm not telling you half the story. I'm not telling you the other part. Women who got justice, or how few women have got justice. How many people really are convicted on this?
So I think evidence-based
It takes.
reporting, no, based on data
Yeah,
and all, I think that's become very
yeah,
important. We only just
yeah.
anecdotal 2, 3 case studies, no, that can be
And
at
look
times
terrible.
misleading. Yeah, it can be
Yeah,
misleading. So it's
very
very
misleading.
important.
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
So the
And then, I
laws.
mean, think of sourcing. I mean, who are you sourcing? Who are you talking to? If all your stories all anonymous all the time, or I mean, and the experts, if the gender experts, get the right gender experts. I tell them,
Correct.
don't just get anybody. Someone will be gender and work expert, someone gender development, gender. We have many experts now, even in India. So you have to talk to the right person who's dealing with that subject and knows and can give you the framework of how to look at that sort of
Correct.
that issue.
And I think most important now also, when we have so many progressive laws, there is a continuous public education on
Yeah,
all these new laws has to be done. That's very
yeah,
important. And other most
correct.
important thing is that at the school level, we
I
have to
agree.
take this issue of gender-based violence. It
Right.
can be even children would be knowing that domestic violence is
Yeah,
bad. Like you saw in
exactly.
Bengal, a girl
Yeah,
wrote,
yeah.
they were asked to write essay on mother. And
Mother.
one girl wrote that my mother, she's so nice, she's so obedient, she cooks nice meal. Still, every day, why does she get thrashed?
Yeah,
And that later,
exactly.
teacher, while evaluating, took it to the principal. Principal took it to the police station, and then the case was filed on powder.
Hmm.
So, because teacher
Hmm.
was aware, it happened, no. So, I think it's
Yeah.
very important that
Yeah, so passing laws, and you have to do education right from to understand your rights and the fact that this should not happen. Because with children, it's like, if this happens in my house, maybe this is a reality, and
Yeah.
there's no other option. You really tell them
And one can get out of it. No,
how to get
that
out.
feeling
Yeah,
has to be there. That I'll
yeah,
get support. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's true. How do I say? Okay,
Yeah.
so are
No,
there
I was just
things?
saying that since we
Yeah.
are coming to the last few minutes of the conversation, if you
Huh.
could sum up and both of you can have a go at summing up your thoughts on this subject.
Yeah. So I think
Okay.
most important thing is that public education and also saying new ways of women to women solidarity. This is very important because patriarchy always pits one woman against the other. So most important thing that there is strength in number, no? So women united will never be defeated, or children united will never be defeated. Always confide in each other, create a safe space. That has to be the education that we can give in a parent teachers association, in the schools, in colleges, even in the
Hmm.
community based organization. So there is a way out, and we have seen that wherever this kind of awareness is there and solidarity is there, then we have found that rebuilding the life for the survivors of violence is much easier, and it is guilt free also. So it's very important that we see it as a social problem, as you say, that it's not a personal problem, it is a social problem, and there has to be social solutions. No, so whether it is in terms of economic policy or decriminalization in the political space, because that happens in a big way, character assassination and attacking the tribals and all. So in every field of life, it is played out, no, the violence. Even in the developmental issues also, we face this. So violence against women or gender-based violence is used as a weapon to demoralize, to subjugate, to intimidate, and to kill the confidence of a person. No, so I think to combat that, I think it is very important to discuss this issue and also create solidarity. among the potential survivors or potential victims. No? Yeah.
Correct. So I agree with everything Vibhuti says. What I'm going to add is in two areas. One is the area that we need to involve men and boys in the issue of gender-based violence. I think we've, kept them out. It's like and many of them definitely after the Jyoti Singh Pandey case. I do workshops related to women in public space. I notice a lot more men wanting to attend workshops, wanting to know how they can look out for friends who are girls or sisters or whatever, but really curious, not understanding the levels of violence they thought the women in their lives were subjected to. And they felt really incompetent. What can we do? How can we understand this issue better? So there is I see with a lot of young men a great earnestness to wanting to know.
And they are sharing also, no? Now, it was a boys' locker room, but now some of them come and share that what is going on in the minds of young men. Especially, you saw recently that the ragging book on ragging by the medical colleges, and same we are having engineering colleges and WhatsApp group. Even to know that such things are happening among such intelligent minds which are being used for misogyny and barbaric. I think that itself is
so really need to involve them, and and also of course as you mentioned earlier, the technology and all kinds of stuff. But the porn is being circulated, or certain kind of gaming is being done, which is violent and sexual in nature. And so we need to. One is looking at what's happening with technology, but more importantly, really involve the people. We've been talking to a lot of young women, but I think talking to young men is really crucial. They have to be part of the solution as well, of discussing and really understanding gender-based violence. And if you do, as you said, these schools and college-based programs from the beginning of understanding your rights to your own body and understanding what limits and how you don't without, and what is consent and how do you participate with someone else in a relationship, in a sexual relationship or non-sexual. You need to understand these different kinds of issues. These have to be discussed from school onwards, so people understand what is it to be in a consensual relationship and what is a non-consensual relationship, what is violence, and their solutions, and the community can come together.
The responsibility.
Okay, the other thing I want to talk with regard to media, we need to constantly, I do workshops in media, this I realize that it's not about one arbit workshop, this is constantly need to upgrade your skills. The laws keep changing, new cases come, new ways of covering gender-based violence with new nuances. There are many ways of looking at gender-based violence. So understand the legal part, the medical part, forensics part, paying attention.
Psychological and mental health part.
Mental health part, understanding privacy, confidentiality, issues of, and the vocabulary you use, the language you're using to talk about this. Because with your language, you're assigning blame very easily. You assign who is the perpetrator, who's the victim. And also bringing in context and linking it to larger issues, understanding, being very intersectional as well, and undertaking more follow-up stories, not just the breaking news stories of that, but also following up the complicated parts of it. So tell us if there are lots of shades of grey in understanding gender-based violence. So I feel I would like to see more nuanced stories in the media. And
also taking up humor as a weapon to perpetuates ideology of rape. No, that also we need to take it up, because so many people continuously getting such messages on WhatsApp and all, even in the society, housing societies and all. There are such highly objectionable messages, humorous though, but which perpetuate rape culture.
Constantly. That's
Thank you, Dr. Vibhuti Patel and Samira Khan, for the insightful and thought-provoking conversation on gender-based violence. Readers may share their reactions, queries and observations in the comments section below. Please watch all the episodes and initiate gender conversations with your family, friends, colleagues and community members.